Good evening. I'm going to call to order this meeting of the Wendell Town Board of Commissioners and welcome you. It's so nice to have folks in here with us tonight. Thank you for coming. We're going to be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Police Captain John Slaughter.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Our invocation tonight through the Wendell Council of Churches, we're going to be led in our invocation tonight by Pastor Wallace Johnson of the Wendell United Methodist Church. Are you with us, Pastor Johnson?
Hey, McRae, doing fine. Yes, ma'am. Glad to be with you. Let's pray, everyone. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the day, for the gift of the rain. Dear Jesus, thank you for a little rain today after being so dry. And the way that even this Pentecost week, your Spirit continues to rain down on us. Would you be with our mayor, with our commissioners, with our town leaders, that you might guide them and lead them into conversations that offer us a bright and new and good future together as Wendell. Bless our meeting tonight, and bless our town, bless our community. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we have a motion to, any adjustments to the agenda? Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Commissioner Boyette?
Aye.
Commissioner Deloach?
Aye.
Commissioner Joyner?
Aye.
Commissioner Lutz?
Aye.
And Commissioner Tarnaski?
Aye.
All right, no one signed up for public comment tonight. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Commissioner Boyette?
Aye.
Commissioner Deloach?
Aye.
Commissioner Joyner?
Aye.
Commissioner Lutz?
Aye.
And Commissioner Tarnaski?
Aye.
All right, we'll move into, where's my page 3? Sorry, my pages were out of order. We have no recognitions, reports, or presentations tonight. We'll move into our public hearings. The public comment process has been provided tonight either in person or in advance of the meeting. The public had the opportunity to submit their written comments to the town clerk, or were able to submit a request via to participate via calling in the conference by emailing their name, address, and phone number to the clerk by Friday, May 21st at 5 p.m., which was last Friday. Please note that the board will take action on these public hearings at the June 14th, 2021 town board meeting. There will be the possibility to submit written comment to the town clerk after this for 24 hours after the meeting tonight, and those who have signed up to speak in person or remotely have 5 minutes to speak. I think I covered all the high points. First one, item number 5A, is a public hearing to rezone approximately 42.75 acres from residential agricultural to residential 7 conditional district along Lions Club Road. Mr. Coates.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The item before you tonight is a public hearing to rezone approximately the 42.75 acres. Our request is that you hold the public hearing, and then the item summary. Applicant has requested to create an R7 conditional district for the roughly 43 acres of property currently located in the town's ETJ. The applicant's proposed R7 conditional district will feature 98 single-family homes and 107 townhomes. Existing property information, current zoning, as you said, is rural agriculture. The requested is R7 conditional. It is in our ETJ. Current land use is vacant/agriculture. Proposed use residential. Property owner Ollie Baker and Annie Sue Faison. Both of the property owners are either represented on the line or will be speaking later. The applicant is Brian Duncan of the Spalding Group, who is also in attendance. Project setting, surrounding area. The parcels, quite a few parcels to the north of this site are R7 conditional district, which was part of the Harper's Glen subdivision that was approved last year. The other remaining south, east, and west of this area is residential agriculture. Just a map showing the zoning district. You can see the Belgrove site is here. Harper's Glen is to the north. To the west is still RA zoning. There is a large Catholic church and Lions Club to the west. The requested R7 conditional district, minimum lot size in R7 is 3,500 square feet. The applicant's proposing a minimum lot size of 4,600 and an average lot size of 5,700 for the single-family lots. It is a mixed development with single-family and townhomes. Lot dimensions required versus proposed. The applicant in an R7 district could do a 24-foot wide lot. They're proposing a 40-foot. Lot depth is 100 at the minimum. Front setback is 20 instead of 10. Side setback instead of 3 is 5. Rear setback is 25. And then for the townhomes, they are proposing a 20-foot lot width instead of 16, which is allowed by code. And they are doing a front setback of 20 feet, and that's because they're requesting that the townhomes be front-loaded with the garages facing the street. Overall site plan. The applicant at this time, in front of you is the list of their 12 conditions related to the rezoning. Condition number 12, which we'll get to in just a moment, has been amended as of today, so that was highlighted in yellow for you. Our slides will show that as well. The first of the 12 conditions, anti-monotony. In order to promote variation in home appearance, no single-family front facade shall be duplicated for 3 lots in a row or directly across the street. For corner lots, this shall apply to the lots catty-cornered across the intersection. Garage doors shall either contain windows or carriage-style adornments. The use of vinyl siding will be prohibited except for the trim elements of the dwelling facade. The community will have a homeowners association. The HOA will be responsible for the townhome's roofs, yard maintenance, and pest control. They are asking the minimum lot size for single family shall be 4,600 square feet. Front-loaded single-family lots shall have a minimum allowed lot width of 40. UDO section 9.7, maximum cul-de-sac length shall exceed 300 feet on street H as necessary to preserve environmental and topographical features. Condition 8 allows the townhomes to be up to 53% of the total units, and those multifamily townhome units shall be front-loaded. Multifamily lots shall not all be identical in width. This is a zoning condition that will have at least 2 different size townhomes in that. Foundations, top of slabs shall be elevated a minimum of 8 inches above finished grade. Finished grade shall fall a minimum of 6 inches within the first 10 feet away from the structure to ensure positive drainage. Condition 11 is a 6-foot tall wooden PVC vinyl privacy fence shall be installed along the western boundary line at the developer's expense, except within the environmentally sensitive areas, more specifically adjacent to Wake County, the pins listed. The fence shall be maintained in perpetuity by the homeowners association. Condition number 12, the earthen berm with a minimum height of 4 feet shall be constructed adjacent to the following pins, except within the environmentally sensitive areas or where the existing trees will remain. All berms and or privacy fencing shall be constructed prior to first phase plat recordation. The fence or berm shall be maintained in perpetuity by the homeowners association. Public utilities, the site will require connection to city water and sewer, which is available nearby. The parcels will need to be annexed. That is actually the next public hearing on your agenda. The applicant has filed those annexation petitions to gain access to utilities. Phasing, the proposed development has 5 phases for the project. Phase 1 includes a mix of townhomes and single family, as well as the playground / tot lot and the mail kiosk area. Phase 2 includes townhomes, single family, as well as the volleyball courts and connection to the swim club. Phases 3 and 5 include single family homes and the public art installation. The applicant is providing some off-street parking spaces at the tot lot mail kiosk area, as well as some designated on-street spaces within the townhome section near the volleyball courts. Streets. The applicant will be responsible for making the required road improvements to Lions Club Road, which is in the future is a 3-lane undivided right-of-way that contains curb, gutter, 5-foot bike lanes, 6-foot sidewalks, and street trees. The property contains roughly 1,500 feet of road frontage along Lions Club Road. It's also key Harper's Glen subdivision, which is on the north side of Lions Club, has quite a lot of frontage. So we'll actually see a good chunk, if this project is approved, we would see a good amount of road widening to full build out of Lions Club in that area. Town of Wendell arterial and collector street plan does show a 79-foot, 3-lane undivided roadway running north-south throughout the site. The applicants provided the required right-of-way with a 2-lane divided with curb, gutter, and sidewalk. Staff is supportive of this 2-lane as it provides a more pedestrian-friendly design going through the middle of a neighborhood and includes turn lanes as needed for the future. Town of Wendell UDO requires a street connectivity index of 1.5 within an R7 zoning district. This determines how developments are laid out and how the roads are connected to each other. The applicant's design is provided an index of 1.64, which is higher than our required. The street layout contains 2 access points to Lions Club Road and 4 stub connections to neighboring properties. The internal streets are also well connected to each other and the thoroughfare. It's also key to note a driveway and unpaved dirt path exist in portions of the eastern and southern properties and will remain to allow access for neighboring property owners to use. Traffic impact analysis was required because of the number of units proposed. Has been completed for the development, and DOT is requiring a southbound turn lane on South Selma Road of 75 feet onto eastbound Lions Club Road. The applicant will need to obtain stormwater and sedimentation erosion control permits from Wake County Environmental Services before any site work can commence. The proposed development will need to meet the requirements of the UDO. Wake County does provide stormwater, sedimentation, erosion control services for the town of Wendell. The proposed plan, the preliminary plan, shows 2 stormwater ponds located in the southern portion of the development. The site does not contain any floodplain, however, the applicant has identified wetlands in the southern portion of the property. The wetlands at this time have been delineated and been verified by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to be sufficiently accurate and reliable representation of the location and the extent of aquatic resources within that review area. I believe the email from Army Corps was in your packet as well, if there's any questions. Buffers. UDO requires a 20-foot type B buffer between R7 and RA zoning districts where more intense proposed use abuts an existing single-family residential use. The applicants provided an earthen berm and fence as well as the 20-foot type B buffer along the western boundary. The applicant is providing a mix of buffer widths along the eastern and southern boundaries of 20 to 40 feet type B buffers. Portions also contain an earthen berm within the buffer. And just for reference, a type B buffer is a minimum 20 feet and has a minimum planting of 1 tree every 25 feet and 1 shrub every 6 feet. Open space, UDO section 7.5 requires roughly 1,750 square feet of open space per single-family dwelling and 1,000 per square feet for townhome units. The applicant is required to provide 6.4 acres of open space. Their development plan is providing 8.68. The applicant's providing 1.67 of those acres are improved and fully active. The active open space, as I mentioned earlier, includes volleyball courts, a tot lot, an area for public art, and a pedestrian connection to the Wendell Swim Club. Comprehensive plan for the town of Wendell identifies this area as S4 controlled growth sector. Typically, it's close to thoroughfares and at key crossroads locations. This sector is where we anticipate moderate intensity new development, and the majority of the community's new growth should occur. The typical envisioned community type S4 is for traditional neighborhoods, neighborhoods serving commercial and civic uses, and it expects a mix of housing type that decrease in density as they get further away from commercial areas. The appropriate uses in this area are single family and multifamily residential that are identified in this project. TRC comments. Technical Review Committee has completed their review of the applicant's master plan. If approved, it would go into a construction drawing phase, which would require additional TRC review. The applicant has made corrections based on the initial TRC comments. The proposed development plan for Belgrove is consistent with the Wendell Comprehensive Land Use Plan, and staff recommends approval of the conditional district rezoning. And I can field any questions that you have now, or you can schedule a public hearing.
Okay. Well, let's open the public hearing. Are there any questions from the board? All right. Is there anyone from the applicant, representing the applicant, or would the applicant like to be heard?
I was going to pull up their PowerPoint. Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Brian Duncan. I'm with the Spalding Group. We are a planning and civil engineering firm in Raleigh, and we are representing the Carolina Land Group for this proposed Belgrove development. See you here before you tonight. Thank you, Brian, for that presentation. I'll try not to be repetitive and make this as short as possible, but I just wanted to reiterate a couple of facts here. First off, I wanted to point you to the location of the property. It's less than approximately 1 mile from here as the crow flies, across the street from the recently approved Harper's Glen development, and is also approximately 150 feet away from the contiguous town limits as they stand today. I won't go over the conditions again, but I do think we have some high quality, some high quality and I don't know what the right word is. Some enhancing conditions here. The anti-monotony is a little above and beyond than what you normally see. Carriage style adjournments on the garage doors, prohibit vinyl siding. I'll scroll down to the bottom. Conditions number 11 and 12 have to do specifically with the neighbor input that we received along the process that I'll go into a little bit later. So I just want to familiarize you with the plan a little bit. Excuse me. I think we have a pretty unique plan here. As Brian mentioned, we'll be constructing a collector street through the middle of it with no driveways on it, median divided landscape median to provide future connectivity down to the southern properties. The connectivity index is pretty high. We only have one cul-de-sac on this layout to provide for good interconnectivity. There are several unique amenities within this site. We have playground behind the mail kiosk. We have a unique little park area, volleyball courts, and the thing that I think is most unique is an art park that's kind of centralized into the eastern part of the development. There will be art provided by a area artist in the future. Just a few little touches to make this unique. We also provided a pedestrian or golf cart connection to the Wendell Swim Club to the west, and this was something that we added as a result of our conversations with them and the desire for potential residents to possibly become a member of the Wendell Swim Club. It would just add a good connectivity instead of having to get out on the road and go around. Just wanted to highlight the transportation improvements again that this is providing to the town. We have approximately 650 feet of the median divided collector through the, 760 feet of the median divided collector through the project. Approximately 1,500 feet along Lions Club Road is going to be widened to its ultimate section, which is 3 lanes, and this will complete the widening in that section once the Harper's Glen development across the street is constructed. So this will be a nice portion of town when all of this is done. And last but not least, this project will be providing a left turn lane at South Selma Road onto Lions Club Road. I think we all realize that once these developments come in, that will be a crucial part of the transportation network, and we are committed to constructing that with this development. I want to touch on, I put this slide in here just to reiterate our commitment, or the developer's commitment to working with the neighbors throughout this process. We held our first neighborhood meeting in September of 2020 and invited all residents within a 200-foot buffer of this project just to get a general neighborhood feedback. The response we got was pretty strong, so we decided then to have as many individual meetings as we thought would be necessary with as many people that would meet with us. So we had at least, I've almost lost count, but at least 14 individual meetings since our initial kind of overall meeting. And so I'll just start from left to right and just kind of go through some of the conditions that we've added just based off of neighborhood feedback. The first one is off the screen here a little bit to the west, but Bob Mancuso of the Catholic Church expressed a strong interest in this project. We met with him twice, and I think he's excited about the potential for a high-quality neighborhood such as this, being within such close proximity to the church, and hopefully one day we'll have a pedestrian connection over there. The Lions Club, we met with Miss Lorraine Dixon. She had concerns she was concerned that the noise that the Lions Club generated could potentially generate some noise complaints from the future residents of this development. So in response to that, we added a privacy fence and a minimum 4-foot berm. The 4-foot berm was an effort to hopefully reflect some of the sound waves back over to the Lions Club, and the fence for safety, just so no one is crossing the property line there from either direction. As I mentioned, we met with Mr. Goins from the Wendell Swim Club. I think he was excited about this development, and also a potential connection to his project. We decided to add a gate that somebody on the Wendell Swim Club side could open if they felt it was necessary, or if they ultimately wanted this connection. I guess the lifeguard or whoever's on duty could open that gate and grant access over to the swim club. And then moving south to the Bridgers, I know they're here tonight. We have met with them several times, both Stephen and Glenn, as many times as they would meet with us, and there are several conditions here that we've added just based off their concerns. I'll just touch on them briefly. I know one of the concerns was preservation of natural resources. We have committed to that along their southern property lines, and in addition, the developer has offered to pay a fee in lieu of road extension where future road extensions meet wetlands just to preserve the natural features. So if my memory serves me correctly, I believe that fee in lieu amount is somewhere over $160,000 that the developer has agreed to pay in lieu of current extension just to preserve those natural features. Let's see here. At one time, the collector road followed a different path. It went down to the house that Stephen Bridgers currently lives in to the south here. I don't know where my cursor is. There it is. Here. In conversations with Brian, we were able to relocate that collector to be more centralized and take a more westerly direction, and that enabled us to create a more contiguous berm around Stephen's, the house that Stephen lives in. We also enhanced the buffer width there from 20 to 40 feet, and that is in addition to the berm that will be constructed there, plus the landscaping that will be required on the buffer. There are additional wetlands to the south that we've committed to retaining and not putting lots there. There's a soil path encroachment onto the Baker Faison property that the Bridgers use, as I understand it, use primarily for agricultural access back and forth. And there was a desire to keep that, and we were able to grant that desire, and we were going to allow that encroachment to stay to maintain access back and forth. And the same is true with a paved driveway encroachment on the eastern side. Approximately 940 feet of an asphalt driveway can remain in perpetuity on the project. I imagine there'll be some sort of a easement that grants access. Let's see here. We've enhanced the buffer widths adjacent to Glenn's property, or the property that he lives on, to 40 feet plus open space. There will also be a berm and or fence along this entire L shape, actually along the entire southern and eastern portion of the property. There are fee in lieu that the developer is paying in order to not extend these roadways to the property line for now, and that is to offer a more contiguous berm and or buffer for shielding of headlights and also just general safety concerns. The conditions in blue were added after additional information was received at the planning board additional concerns were raised, and I met with Glenn that following Thursday night to talk about some of these. We've added a condition that a berm or a fence will be constructed along the southern property line. He had mentioned that his daughter likes to walk this path, and so we made a commitment to create a barrier there just for screening and safety. We also added a condition that the buffer and/or fence that gets constructed adjacent to the Bridgers properties be done so prior to the first phase of plat recordation. So while construction is generally being concentrated up on Lions Club Road, the buffer and fence will be installed preemptively on the southern side to go ahead and provide that screening earlier. I wanted to put this slide in here just to kind of reiterate the physical or natural barrier that's going to exist once this is built out with the Bridgers properties and adjacent properties. So everywhere you see in pink will either have a constructed or natural barrier, physical barrier between this project and the adjacent properties. Just to summarize, we believe this is a quality project with a lot of good things in it. It is consistent with the S4 Controlled Growth District. This project is consistent with adjacent developments. We believe it has some unique amenities, i.e. the art park and little park and sitting area to the south. We think this will be a benefit to the Wendell Swim Club, given the pedestrian connection. We think it could be a potential benefit to the Lions Club. This development is not going to have any centralized clubhouse or meeting area, so if somebody wants to have a birthday party or a family event, we think it's very likely that they'll want to rent out the Lions Club to do so. There's been numerous plan modifications resulting from the neighbor concerns, and we've been in open communication with them since September of 2020. And last but not least, the transportation improvements, both along the frontage through the site and an off-site turn lane. And I'm available for any questions, either now or after everybody's spoken.
Okay. Any questions from the board right now?
I have one, Madam Mayor.
Yeah.
Sure. Mr. Potter, you said fee in lieu of is for the fact that you're not going into those buffers with the stubs. Is that, you said it was $160,000 worth of fee in lieu of?
Yes, in total for the entire project.
In total, okay. That was my question.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Approximately, don't quote me on that, but it's close.
Anything else? All right. Anybody else want to speak on behalf of the applicant?
Thank you.
I'm Paul White. Anybody know who I am? I operate Universal Chevrolet behind us, and I live on Lions Club Road. Let's make a few comments about the project. Wendell is growing, and Lions Club is a logical location for some of this growth. Because of some things done in the past, we've got a 12-inch water line circling that road. We've got a sewer lift station that has hardly anything on it. So that makes good for doing some development there. I'm involved with the project on the left side of the road, Harper's Glen. We front Lions Club and Wolfers Bridge Road, and we have two entrances and exits from both sides. The project on the south side complements our project. I am not involved with it. I do have a business partner in my project that is involved with it, but I'm not involved with the subdivision. The water's there, the sewer's there, and it's available through our project. The traffic on Lions Club Road gets a 75% stackable turn lane coming from downtown, which will help with traffic flow. Most traffic leaving will be turning right, so there won't be any blockages coming out of Lions Club Road. I recommend this project for these reasons and more, and I do live on Lions Club Road. Thank you.
Anyone else who wants to speak from the applicant, on behalf of the applicant? All right, are there any citizens that want to speak tonight?
On behalf or?
Say
Please
your,
speak.
whatever you want.
Okay.
So give me your name and address.
All right, my name's Glenn Bridgers. I live at 894 Lions Club Road. And I know most of the people in the room here. I have talked with the developer several times. They have been more than willing to listen to our concerns. They've addressed a lot of the concerns that we've had, and I appreciate that. And you know, I'm wanting to work with them any way I can to try to come up with a solution that's good for them and good for me or the family, the farm. A couple of the concerns that I have, number one, it's been very difficult to sit down with anyone over the last year. I'm not real familiar with the collector street that runs through the middle of that property there. I'm not at all pleased with the location of it as it ties into our property. And I think that is something that should have maybe been addressed, or someone should have at least tried to contact us before that collector street was put on that map. I don't think it's in the best location. As far as the subdivision goes, you know, there's several thousand acres of land, undeveloped land, on that side of Lions Club Road. Few houses that are there, and every single one of the pieces of property is a minimum, I think, of .67 acres. I think that is Miss Fason's house, and I think that's the smallest lot on that whole side of Lions Club Road. All the way down to Johnson County line, all the way around the 231 highway. There's no small lots on there. So, and I understand this is on the edge of town. The water and sewer is there. There can be a little more condensed housing. I feel like that part of that is appropriate. I don't feel like it's appropriate for some of those smaller lots to be as far up there next to our property as they are. I really don't like, you know, the high density at all on that side of Lions Club Road. For years, I've lived in Wendell. I've come to board meetings. I've served on planning board. I've had a lot to do with some of the developments that have happened. And almost inevitably, whenever I talk to people about it, they'd say, we need to get some larger size homes. We need to get some bigger, nicer houses, because people move to Wendell. It's a starter community, and then they move out and go somewhere else. There's a pretty good sized tract of land that has large lots, potential for larger homes, potential for small farms, horse farms, whatever. I'm just questioning whether this is what the town wants to do with this piece of property. You know, obviously, some of the plans, I guess the collector road was done by the transportation board, I'm not sure. Maybe I should have gotten involved with that sooner. Didn't really foresee this happening, and in the middle of COVID, couldn't even come talk to anybody. So I'm just asking for a little bit of concern and maybe someone to address a few of those concerns as far as the location of that collector road, maybe some larger lots. Thank y'all for your time, and I appreciate the consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm Stephen Bridgers, 653 South Selma Road. This is R7 conditional zoning that they're requesting to get, which means I need to get as many things in the conditional zoning as possible. But before y'all make your decision on it, The town's new master plan has the Wake Tech campus, Wendell Falls, and downtown as the main areas. If you want the higher density in there and you're putting R7 out here, unless you're building skyscrapers between the three of those, your high density is going to be mixed all over town. As Glenn mentioned earlier, this tract of land from Lions Club Road south, it's larger lots. I mean, eventually, yes, y'all say everything will be developed, but right now it's larger lots of people who wanted to live near the town, but not completely in the town. Now, the Morphus Bridge Road R7 makes sense. It goes R7, it goes R4. Why would you design it to go back up to R7 and dump all that traffic on a road that's going to have to go down 231? 231, y'all have been saying since I got my license 15 years ago, 231 is going to get expanded. It's going to get wider. It's still not wider. There's still no shoulder, and there's more traffic than ever on it, and the NCDOT is never coming out to work on it. We've tried. The next thing I'd like to bring up is, I know they said they're doing a Wake County environmental study on this. I have talked to several different people, including a professor from my college, who knows way more about fluvial process than I do. This long connector road, or not connector road, cul-de-sac coming down, at the top of it, where the artwork is the highest point. The water's going to run down the road. Yes, there's going to be some kind of culvert or something to divert the water somewhere else, but when you try to turn water at 90 degrees, it's going to go where it wants to. It's going to go over. This area has a coarse, sandy soil in it, and that means it drains very quickly. So once it gets into that wetlands, it's going to go down, which is going to drain right into my pond. Me and my uncle have discussed opening a nursery in town, growing the trees and using that as our main water source. And I know right now my cousin Ben uses that water source as a way to water all of his crops. I need to know before y'all pass this if they can guarantee me that nothing is going to happen to our pond. My honeybees also are on that pond. I have 37 hives right now, and due to the higher demand in town because of all the people moving in and the brewery opening, I plan on by the time they get to phase 4 having around 100 hives, all in that area. I have been collecting water samples since the trees were logged out of the property and I knew it was going up for sale. I believe it was September 2019 was the first time I collected it, and I've been collecting it every 6 months since then. I just want to go on the record letting y'all all know that I am watching it, and I am hoping that everything they says is true, and it's not going to run a bunch of sludge into our pond. I am happy with how much they've done for me personally, working with the berms and trying not to level every tree in the area. I know the town likes to, cut the trees down and plant new ones, but it's nice to have some of the bigger trees around now. I know the town wants to grow. I know y'all want your Chick-fil-A. I just feel like this is way too heavy out where it is. It takes me 12 minutes to get to the Food Lion. I can literally drive all the way to Percy Flowers faster than I can get to Food Lion because the roads in town just aren't ready for something this big back here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, are there any more questions from the board? Questions?
We have people on the Uber conference line.
Oh, do we? Okay, I was waiting. Okay. Who do we have?
You can put Stacy Wood or Brody Wood, who will have Mr. Ollie Baker on the line. You need to come to the mic if you're going to talk.
Yeah.
Mr. Ollie Baker or Stacy Wood, if either of you would like to speak, now is your chance.
Can you hear us?
We can.
Okay, here is Ollie Baker. Talk. Go ahead and talk.
Hello.
All you got to do.
Hi, Mr. Baker. Go ahead, please.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me now? This is Ollie.
Tell him to give us his address.
Yes, Mr. Baker. Could you give us your address, please?
1933 Davistown Road, Wendell, North Carolina, 27591. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I am one of the owners of the land that we're processing down there, and just wanted to bring you up to date. I have been a Wendell resident all my life, although I live out in the country. I don't live in the city limits. but I have been there, and I went to school in Wendell, graduated in 1954. The biggest class that ever graduated from Wendell High School with 42 people in it. All the other classes that graduated after me was in the 30s. But the other thing is, my great-grandfather was Ollie Baker, who surveyed the town of Wendell Hall when it was incorporated in 1903. So you know that I go back a long way to the town of Wendell. Other than that, after I finished school in '54, Marcy and I bought this property out there in 1964. In the late '60s, we gave 2 acres of land to the Lions Club to build a Lions Club out there. So that lets you know that I am interested in the development of Wendell and always have been. And I want you to do the same thing now for us out there, that we've got this stuff on the market and everything is going good for us. And one of the things that I have asked for from Hugh Caston and the Wendell Historical Society is to have a reunion of all the people that graduated from Wendell High School. From the time I graduated and before, I think 1965 was the last graduating class, and I've asked them to have a reunion of that class, and I'm expecting the Wendell Historical Society and for you to help me out in promoting that. We were talking about it a year ago, and then this coronavirus come about, but we've got it back on the market again. And so we're still trying the Historical Society and everybody else to have a reunion of Wendell High School. So that is my comment to you tonight. Y'all keep doing the good project that you're doing down there, and I will support you in any way possible. Thank you and good night.
Thank you. I'll call Hugh Cashin. Is there anyone else online that would like to speak?
Mr. Carter Kennemer is on Uber conference representing Ms. Faison.
Okay.
Okay, now
Good
Carter
evening.
is gonna read that letter that Ms. Anderson's daughter.
Good evening.
That is correct. My name is Carter Kennemer. I'm the real estate broker representing the family. My address is 31128 Croft Road in Raleigh, North Carolina. I've been asked to read a letter that I believe is in your packet, that was written by Marion Faison James, who's Annie Sue Faison's daughter. With your permission, I will read that letter now.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
As Bob Dylan wrote, okay? Interestingly enough, it references Bob Dylan, who turned 80 years old today. As Bob Dylan wrote and sang, for the times they are a change. Change is inevitable, and it can be good or not so good. The way in which we handle change can, in many instances, determine the success or failure of change. Back in the 60s, when my daddy, Monty Faison, and his buddy Ollie Baker pooled their resources and bought a farm out on Lions Club Road, they did so as an investment for the future of their family. Both men had day jobs. They loved the land, but they were not farmers. Daddy owned and operated his own business, Wendell Tire Company, which is still in existence. So to pay the taxes, the farm was tended by various people over the years. Owning the farm was not a money-making venture. In the early years, many happy hours were spent hunting the land by Daddy, Ollie, my brother, and others who still live in Wendell. I learned to shoot a shotgun out on the farm. Daddy used to dream of building a house on the farm. We lived in town, and the farm seemed so far away from our friends. My first farming tobacco job was on our farm. I learned how to work hard and earn my own money. Both of my parents were born in Wendell, and our family had deep ties to this town. My maternal grandfather, John Maddox, owned a furniture store in Wendell. My brother and I were born and raised in Wendell as well. For over 31 years, my family and I lived on the farm. We fulfilled a dream my daddy had to live on it. The land continued to be farmed, but hunting ceased for the most part. Daddy did not own lots of acreage and properties around town. The farm on Lions Club Road was his investment for the future of his family. That being said, I believe now it is the time for the investment made by Daddy and Ollie to be realized. With the sudden death of my daddy in 1971, the management of the farm has fallen on Ollie. He is now in his 80s and ready to slow down. Our family has trusted him all these years, and we trust him to bring to fruition the dream he and Daddy had almost 60 years ago. Ollie has trusted Carter Kennemer to represent him and Mama. The Carolina Land Group is now being trusted to create a quality subdivision on our treasured farm. I have reviewed the site plan for the proposed development of the farm sent to me by Kirby LaForce of Carolina Land Group. Contact has been made with surrounding property owners, me included, and accommodations have been made to make this change more palatable. This did not have to be done. When the day comes, and it will, for the surrounding property owners to sell, I hope they will choose to be as concerned about their neighbors as Carolina Land Group. I'm pleased with the efforts and contacts that have been made to help ensure this change is beneficial to us all. Ollie and my mama have put their trust in Carolina Land Group. I do as well. My family and I choose to accept that the times are changing. We live here on the land adjoining the proposed subdivision. No one has more interest in and concern for what transpires than our family. We care about the future of this family land on Lions Club Road. When this letter was written, December 21st was Daddy's 99th birthday. I know he is in heaven watching over this process and our family. Thank you for your positive response to the proposal from Carolina Land Group. We choose to look forward to change and to respect my daddy's investment into the future of his family that he loves so dearly. Thank you for your effort. Respectfully, Marion Mason James. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Is there anyone else on the line? Okay. Are there any other citizens who wish to speak? I want to make sure everybody has a chance to have some input if they wish. Are there any more questions from the board? Comments?
I have one, Mayor Graham.
Yes.
Would someone from the developer group mind speaking to Stephen Bridger's concerns regarding some environmental studies that have been done?
And the drainage into the pond?
I'm sorry?
The drainage?
Yes,
You don't
thank
mind?
you for asking.
No, you're fine.
But
Yeah.
I had a note to that as well.
Gotcha, yes, absolutely. So you can see there's a little, this acronym BMP stands for Best Management Practices, i.e. a stormwater management device. So the construction drawings are still, have not been fully developed yet, but I would almost guarantee that the majority of this water will end up in that stormwater management device, which treats, it holds the water quality for a certain amount of days, and it also treats the quality of the water. So it's designed to release cleaner water than it receives. And so we'll be required to comply with Wake County Stormwater Ordinance. The town's Stormwater Ordinance will be required to comply with with Wake County's Erosion Control Ordinance during construction. All those plans will be developed at the construction drawing phase, reviewed and approved, and will also be inspected periodically as construction progresses and monitored during the process. So I think that you will probably see less runoff to the south post-developed after this project is developed than pre, because, like I said, it will be diverted to that pond. The majority of it will be diverted to that pond, held and treated.
Commissioner Lutz, is that
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
follow up?
Sure.
That's fine, thank you.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
you're very comfortable that that water isn't going to flow into that pond
Well,
that's used for farming irrigation?
well, I mean-
That is important.
Yeah, the water course is going to follow the natural water course, but there will be that management device in between to hold both the quantity and treat the quality of the water and released, and it will also be released slowly over a number of days.
And you think it's adequate where it's located and size and everything to
Yes,
manage that
absolutely.
concern?
It will be sized per all the state requirements, and most likely even oversized a little bit. And also, another thing I'll mention is, once we get into the construction drawing phases, these lots will be graded very specifically. The grading plans are very specific nowadays, and these lots will be graded in such a manner that even the water that falls on these lots will find its way to the street. The street will then empty into the stormwater management device.
Okay. All right, any other questions or comments from the board? Well, there was, a question was brought up about the collector street. Can we talk about that? I think Mr. Bridgers had a comment,
Yeah.
a question about the collector street and the
Yeah, so-
location of the collector street.
So the arterial and collector street plan, which is adopted by the town, lays out future roadways in their locations. It's not an exact location, but it's a relative location. The current document that's been adopted for quite a few years shows a collector thoroughfare cutting through the middle of this property, connecting Lions Club with South Selma. So the location lines up exactly with Harper's Glen's entrance to the north. So that was based on staff input that needs to be in the middle based on where the transportation plan puts that roadway. And ultimately, if the properties to the south get developed, that road will continue and intersect with South Selma in the future. And it provides a way from people, Morphus Bridge area and Lions Club, to go south without going out on Lions Club. So that road will provide another means of ways in and out of that part of town.
So the location where it's been placed is for connectivity?
For current connectivity and future.
future.
Yep.
Right,
Mhm.
okay.
And that is more of a town direction than developer direction then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so those type of roadways we do not want driveways on them. We want them to function to move traffic from one area to another. So that's why you'll see it's designed not to have driveways. It's to really be a collector that gets people from one area to another, and not kind of go through a residential street with driveways.
Okay.
Brian, it hasn't been said yet, so I'm going to ask you to say it, but what triggers the continuation of that street?
Development.
Right,
When
but
the property
only
to
way
the
that
south
it develops is,
Yeah, so if the Bridgers property that's quite large, I think to the south, if that were ever to be developed, they would need to provide the remaining portion of that road out to South Selma on that property to the south.
And if they don't develop it, no road will go through it?
Correct.
Brian, is it, to me, and I'm very naive on this, but it seems strange to have a collector street running through a neighborhood. Is that typical or?
It is typical. We have a few in so for example, to give you a feel, Wendell Falls, Big Falls Drive
Okay.
connects the Publix area with Pool Road, and that's a 67-foot right-of-way, wide with bike lanes and room to move traffic, and you'll see no driveways on it. There's 2 houses, I think, that have a driveway.
Okay.
It's to move traffic. Another one in the Wendell Falls area is Taylor Road.
Okay.
By the school, up past the fire station. The homes are all alley loaded along there, and that's for a reason. It's to serve as a collector. There's some other ones in town. If you were to go along, so Old Zebulon over to Marshburn will have collectors, similar that function that way to move traffic from one side of town to the other, or from neighborhoods to a more of a commercial area.
Okay. All right, that helps. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other questions from the board? All right, we're going to close the public hearing, subject to the receipt of comment for the next 24 hours, and we will take this up at our next meeting. Right, item 5B is a public hearing for a non-contiguous annexation for one parcel totaling 42.75 acres located at 0 Lions Club Road.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This next public hearing, let's see, public hearing for non-contiguous annexation for the parcel that was just as part of the rezoning, 42.75 acres along Lions Club Road. Annie Oakley of the Spalding Group, on behalf of Ollie Baker and Annie Sue Faison, submitted the annexation request totaling for the parcel. The applicant has submitted a conditional R7 rezoning petition. The annexation is required for access to municipal services. Parcel is located in our ETJ. ETJs are areas that municipalities are supposed to grow into. It's our zoning, even though they're not in town limits yet. The proposed annexation area would require services from the town's police, public works, parks and rec departments if annexed and developed. Secondary service impacts will be incurred by other town departments such as planning. The property is already served by the fire district. Nothing changes there between ETJ and city limits. Water and sewer are readily available in this area, and they're provided by the Wendell service agreement with the City of Raleigh Utilities. Specific impacts are dependent on the use, density, and design of development and subject to approvals for utility allocations and land use. And I can field any questions you may have on the annexation.
All right, any questions from the board? All right, I'm going to open the public hearing. Is there anyone that wants to be heard on this? Is there anybody on the line? I assume I'm just going to ask anyhow. Okay. All right, we'll close the public hearing, subject to the receipt of comment for the next 24 hours, and take this up at our next meeting. We'll move into our administrative items. Item 6A is the adoption of the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget and fee schedule. Collins.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Board. Good to see you all here this evening. Tonight, the Board will be asked for 3 actions for the FY 2021 and 2022 Town of Wendell budget. The first is a motion to adopt the budget for FY 22. And let me bring finance staff in if I can take 1 minute, and
Yeah.
maybe that'll allow people to transition that
Okay.
want to transition.
Sure. They're eagerly waiting at the door.
Reminded that they might have been watching on Facebook Live
Maybe.
that had a little bit of a lag, and I was like, maybe I should delay for a minute. The second motion is to approve the budget ordinance, and then the third is to approve the fee schedule. So three actions. The budget is prepared and submitted in accordance with the Local Government Budget and Fiscal Control Act, which of course is necessary statutorily. As a reminder, the budget document itself is a primary policy document. It's arguably the most important policy document that the board considers each year, as it connects that fiscal appropriation of resources with your strategic goals. It's intended also as a communication document in a form of transparency for what we do in local government, to provide clear, concise, and organized information for the public to better understand what we do and to what extent we do it. It meets the proposed budget that's presented meets your budget priorities, is consistent with your adopted priorities, and does advance your strategic plan initiatives. The strategic plan is included in the document. It does include a 5-year capital improvement plan, which is our biggest challenge each and every year to help retrofit older sections of town and prepare for growth areas as well, and keeping up with the facilities and services needed for a growing community. The budget as presented meets your fund balance and the legal debt limitations. It includes staffing analysis and projected population growth projections for our community. I just want to point out that people who've lived here a while say, how's the town able to do these things? You know, how are we able to accommodate additional things? This year over last year we grew 86 million in valuation. This past year we grew 135. And it's not a linear growth that we're experiencing right now, it's kind of geometric. That being said, is we collect our revenues on a lag behind development. The valuation happens after the citizens are there requesting service. So there's always a service demand that's higher than our resources, and it's a constant game of catch up with some correction during reval years. This is not a reval year. The budget document has received the Government Finance Officials Distinguished Budget Presentation Award the past 2 years. If it's not broke, we're not changing it. So similar layout to previous years. The actual budget and fee schedule, it's a balanced budget presented at $23,317,452. That represents a 19% increase over FY 2021. That's predominantly in capital expenses that can vary your budget greatly. A big chunk of that, of course, is the streets program that's added this year. So a lot of good capital and programmatic increases representing that. The other good news is a flat property tax, so there's no tax increase in this proposed budget, remains at 47 cents. It does have a few fee increases to help pay for directly pay for some of the programmatic and service increases. One is a $10 increase in the auto decal fee, a solid waste fee increase of $3, a new stormwater fee of $20 per year, and a construction drawing review fee that's offset in the development process of $700 for review consistent with the other jurisdictions' comparative analysis. The FY 22 budget priorities, investment in staff, the budget proposes 4 new positions, a public works specialist starting July 1st, police sergeant, police officer, and IT specialist starting in January. It does include a 3% salary increase for employees to help them move within their pay scales and to keep up with market. Probably a more important goal from a staff standpoint in this is health benefit options to make that more affordable for staff. We're incorporating that within our budgeted expense, so we kind of defined a constraint and then went to our HR consultant to work with different healthcare providers, and we're proud to be able to provide 2 options: maintaining our Cadillac level plan that we currently have, and also providing a lower cost option for employees so it's more affordable for spouse and dependent coverage. And we're also adding an HRA amount for each employee. Rather than just increasing the town's premium, we're providing an amount. It's almost like a debit card that employees can use to help cover their co-pays and deductibles and prescription costs. So there's a benefit card that helps further make that affordable for our employees. Behind our pay and class study, that was probably the second most critical HR issue that we needed to address from a fiscal standpoint. Some of the other opportunities being recognized, the budget implements a $994,300 streets program. I'm so excited I can't get that one out of my mouth, but it touches more than 42 streets with either minor repair or major rehabilitation, in addition to some significant capital improvements that are also listed there on the screen. in the 5-year CIP, the entire pavement management plan is accounted for moving forward as well. That maintains a good road standard. It is a timely needed improvement to start maintaining our streets throughout town to avoid everything breaking at one time. It initiates a stormwater utility program. We'll continue to say this. We anticipate the state audit in 2022. It's a federally required program that's enforced also by the state, and so we're maintaining efforts to improve our program to get to compliance in a timely manner. Solid waste services. We heard from the public and the board about increasing the number of call-ins for yard waste from 2 to 3, so that is included in this budget consideration. As the board received and authorized, downtown solid waste service is increasing to help make downtown an attractive place to do business in Wendell, and covers increased expenses within the program from Raleigh and tipping fees at landfills. Another implementation in this year's budget is an efficiency change, and that's going from a vehicle lease versus purchase. It maintains vehicle choice and modifications for the department. Estimated savings through a draft agreement over a 5-year CIP period is a little over $400,000 of savings to the taxpayer, and over the full 8-year lease, over $1 million savings to the taxpayer. At our current valuation, that's nearly a savings of 1 penny. So to purchase the same amount of vehicles and replace them over that time period would require us to increase our tax rate 1 penny to do the same thing right now. It does provide for the lease of 13 vehicles in the coming fiscal year, which is estimated savings of a little over $200,000 for purchasing those same vehicles. In approving the budget, you're not agreeing to a specific lease agreement. It's just what's budgeted for vehicles, and it's in this lease format. The board still gets to make the policy decision in approving or not approving any agreement moving forward. Capital expenditures account for almost $14 million in the proposed budget. Of that, a little over $5 million is for transportation and infrastructure, so a heavy investment to benefit the public out in infrastructure. The vehicle lease and a minor investment in technology, but continuing to replace out aging technology on our schedule. The $8.4 million in building and grounds includes the town hall project that gets constructed in the coming fiscal year as the primary purchase there. $40,000 in economic and community development is the completion of the comp plan update and small area plan in the community college area. For debt, there is an issuance of $11 million of debt in the budget, which includes the new town hall, park construction, police station land acquisition, the second park entrance for Landing View Drive, and neighborhood improvements for Zone 1. A portion of those last two get funded from the debt. Fund balance appropriates approximately $940,000, but even after doing that, you're still maintaining an 82.6% of your operating and fund balance, which is well above your 40% policy and well above the 8% required by the state. I would point out, we added $700,000+ to the fund balance last year, so the net difference is relatively small from last year to this year, and how much of fund balance you're actually, and when we finish this year, it'll be close. So it's almost a net zero game over the last 2 years if we expend all of this money next year. The proposed budget was presented by the town manager, your budget officer, to the board and to the public and media on May 5th as required or consistent with state law. The budget hearing was held on May 10th. By state law, that's required to be held between the presentation of the budget to you and the adoption of the budget. And the budget's been available for public review for greater than 10 days, which is also one of the requirements from the point of presentation to adoption. So again, the specific actions requested are the 3 motions below. I'm glad to answer any questions you may have regarding the budget.
Any questions from the board for the manager?
I've got 2, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
Mark, you spoke to the way that our revenues roll on after development has occurred. Can you talk to the future projections of those? That I know it took time for Wendell Falls to begin coming in. I know that there's always conversation about the number of developments we have out. Is there a predictability in that staff can foresee?
Not within reason. I always talk, budgets are about hand grenades and audits are kind of laser strikes. And so any guess at timing of when something is actually completely built and enters the tax roll is just that, a guess. And the value of the home in the year it comes on with the change in valuation is also a big variable. You can look backwards a little bit and kind of see a ramping up, and you can know that what's happened to date hasn't accounted for any significant amount of the commercial development and multifamily currently under construction, and making some very loose assumptions about a couple or 3 of the apartment buildings, the Publix, SPC, and maybe a certain number of housing units would actually cover the entire debt service on the 11 million borrowing next year. So we've kind of done projections about what conservative growth estimates we need to be able to make sure our debt coverage when the payments come into effect in 2023. So I'd be hesitant to throw anything ballpark out there, but it's more of a geometric than linear increase at the moment, and it's been based primarily on single-family growth to date, and the townhomes and apartments and commercial coming online is a different level of valuation growth. We just crossed the 1 billion mark in valuation. So we've joined the other Wake County communities in the over 1 billion valuation set. With that being said, we're still the lowest valued, and we're still heavily residential, which is a lower valuation than non-residential. I hope I was vague at giving you a precise answer.
Yeah, I'm going to take that, well, beyond stealing my $1 billion point that I had written down later. I would say that the coming growth is at least there and predictable. So I take great joy in the budget process, and every year I learn something new. And the mayor taught me in her first year, or not her first year, my first year, to look at the lines on Parks and Rec. This is certainly not something we have to address in the budget, but I find it odd that we, for a non-tournament sporting event, charge a mowing fee for a field that we only have 3 of, and theoretically we should be cutting them. Just an oddity, and certainly something that I'll be happy to work on later. And those are my questions, Madam Mayor. I'll save comments for later.
Okay. Any other questions? Comments?
All right, Madam Mayor, well, then no more questions. I'll make a comment. This budget is, in the past couple of years, we got to talk about the style, the format, the process, getting to it, how we did it. And every year we said, this is the best budget we've seen. This is a different, and I think initially it was the format that got that GFO certification in. That format allowed for a lot more transparency, and you could see more. Butch can recall me being a relatively new board member sitting in his office asking line by line, what does this mean? Where does that go? Part of me feels like I'm not getting my full budget experience because I haven't had to go sit down in offices and say, hey, what is this and where is this and where does this go? But it's because it's all there. It's all pretty plainly written and pretty easily presented. I appreciate the way that staff has gone about that, and I also appreciate, and what I'd say is in previous years we've all had a variety of priorities, and that priority for the year may be fix X in the park or fix Y, and there's just a dollar amount written beside it, and we likely have an email somewhere that tells us for this dollar amount we can probably do this. Each of these investments that you see resulted because there's a substantial plan behind them, which is another thing that truly makes me trust this budget. The other piece, and these are things that I've heard ever since I got on the board, we got to repave our streets, and then quickly followed by, no, not that street, my street. I feel relatively confident in saying that if you're listening to this, your street is likely to be repaved in the next 5 years in some version. This budget appropriates the largest amount of money that I've ever seen appropriated to transportation for the town, and to be completely transparent, it appropriates more money to transportation and infrastructure projects than the entirety of the first budget that I was a part of passing. We heard earlier tonight in another public hearing the importance of stormwater and the runoff and the concerns about that. We don't often get to address those during those public comments because it's a very small piece. I want everyone to hear and understand there's a huge investment going into ensuring our stormwater program is not only good for today, but it's good for tomorrow and good moving forward. I appreciate the long-term vision that's put into the budget. I appreciate the fact that the manager has, in my opinion, hit the vast majority of the priorities set out by this board, including, and in a lot of ways, most importantly, maintaining a revenue or a ad valorem tax rate that it doesn't go up, doesn't increase. And for the new and the services that are being provided, it puts a fee, and in my opinion, that's where it should be. It puts it directly to the person that gets the benefit from the new service. That is an equitable way of doing things, and I certainly am happy to see it that way. I could continue, but based on the number of questions and the number of comments, and I would just say that this is a good budget. I'm excited about the number of things that it does. I'm also excited about, in my opinion, that the future that it lays out and provides for. There are things in this budget that for the next 5 years, we will be able to look back and say, in doing this in 2021, we have saved ourselves in the future, as well as truly getting to what I call the 3-word synopsis of what we want. When we all start a strategic plan, in some version of everyone I've been a part of, there's a bunch of sticky notes, and you're trying to put 3 words of what you want, and everyone wants a vibrant Wendell, a safe Wendell. It means something different to everyone. This budget really gets at a lot of those initial goals that in years past we didn't really know how to quantify into a safe Wendell means X, Y, or Z in the budget. This year we have a plan that shows us what that is. I applaud staff on the process. I applaud our finance department. They have light years and move mountains to get this quality of a document with this amount of long-term plan. And obviously, just, again, thank staff for putting this together in the way that they did. We used to attempt to get consensus and buy-in at this table at this moment. And I would argue that staff got consensus and buy-in on this plan months ago, which is why they did it through the way that they crafted the budget. And I certainly appreciate it, and I know my colleagues appreciate me not attempting to take budgets 3 and 4 and 5 days into Wednesdays and Thursdays. So staff, thank you for that. And Madam Mayor, I'm happy to make a motion when it's...
Okay, let's hear it.
Make a motion to adopt the fiscal year 2022 Town of Wendell budget. And motion to approve the fiscal year 2022 budget ordinance as well as the 2022 fiscal year fee schedule.
Okay, so we have a motion to adopt the fiscal year 2022 budget, to approve the fiscal year 2022 budget ordinance, and to approve the fiscal year 2022 fee schedule. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, all in favor, let's see. Commissioner Boyette.
Aye.
Commissioner Deloach.
Aye.
Commissioner Joyner.
Aye.
Commissioner Lutz.
Aye.
And Commissioner Tornaski.
Aye.
All right.
I'd just like to take 1 second and thank the mayor and board for your clear strategic direction of policy. That definitely helps staff to be able to create a document like this, to listen and be responsive to your needs and the community's needs through you. And I would be reticent not to recognize all the departments, and especially the finance staff, for their effort. It starts sometimes before we hit December. We're looking ahead to the next 6 months with the budget half of our year from this standpoint. And so thank y'all for recognizing their efforts and your own to get to this point. Thank you.
All right, item 6B is a decision on text amendment to the Town of Wendell Code of Ordinances and Unified Development Ordinance to comply with Chapter 160D of the North Carolina General Statutes.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the board. Tonight, as you noted, we will be discussing text amendment for 160D. The action requested here is to make a motion on proposed text amendment and request to consider adopting the attached ordinance. Important to note that we had a public hearing for this item on May 10th. Real quick, I will go over what 160D is again. Consolidates current city and county enabling legislation for development regulations into a single unified chapter, a more logical organization of those regulations. It's important to note it does not make any major policy changes. However, it does provide many clarifying amendments and consensus reforms. This is the 4th proposed text amendment, and this one deals specifically with bona fide farm exemptions and the minimum housing code. For the bona fide farm exemption, 160D says we must exempt the farm use on bona fide farm in the ETJ from city zoning to the same extent we would from county zoning. For the minimum housing section, we must follow standardized processes for housing code enforcement to determine owners' abandonment of intent to repair and need for demolition. As we got into the minimum housing code, I think it's important to note that this one small change of abandoning the intent to repair and demolition had a ripple effect through the entire minimum housing code, so we had to do a very, very large text amendment. So for the bona fide farm, specifically within the section 1.5 and the definitions, we had to make some changes. So we added specific language that noted properties that cease to be used for bona fide farms will be subject to regulations. So if you do not operate as a bona fide farm, you will be subject to regulations of our UDO. You are not exempt from the floodplain regulations if you are a bona fide farm. Language related to agritourism specifically notes that accessory structures associated with agritourism are exempt from the building code and zoning code. We needed to add a definition of agritourism. We didn't have that in there before. Now we do. We are updating the definition for bona fide farm as well to include residences must be constructed to the building code. Now for housing code enforcement. Chapter 34 of the Code of Ordinances. It's not in the UDO, it's in the Code of Ordinances. We modified the definitions for deteriorated and dilapidated as they relate to the cost of repairing a dwelling. It was changed from a cost not in excess of 40% to not in excess of 50% of the value. The definitions for public officers and parties in interest were added. The definition of inspector was removed because we are now using the term public officer. The definition of owner was revised to comply with the definition noted in 160D as well. We added a section about periodic inspections. Reasonable cause for inspection, for example, complaints, visible violations, or a history of violations. As part of a targeted effort to respond to blighted conditions, you're able to have those periodic inspections. In addition, investigation, notice, and hearing, reasons for an owner to vacate a deteriorated home. So we have the ability to ask an owner to vacate a deteriorated home in examples of asbestos being in the home or the need for lead abatement. Failure to comply with the order, so there's a section about that. We had to add language. We added a section on demolition to this area. We also added a section on the abandonment of intent to repair. The dwelling must be vacated and closed for a period of 12 months. So that's new, it's important. So after the 12-month period, the Board of Commissioners must give a property owner 90 days to repair or demolish a structure. The ordinance must be recorded with the Register of Deeds. For methods of service of complaints and orders, if a property owner refuses to be served, then a mailed notice is sent, and if not returned within 10 days, that service is deemed sufficient. If snail mail is used, we must also post the property, essentially put a sign out in front of the property. We changed all references, again, on minimum housing inspector to public officer. At the April 19th, 2021 Planning Board meeting, they voted unanimously to recommend approval on the requested text amendment. The requested zoning text is consistent with the comprehensive plan, and it supports key principle number 9. Make development decisions predictable, fair, and cost-effective. Staff recommends approval. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Madam Mayor, have a motion if you're ready.
I'm ready.
Motion to accept the proposed text amendments to comply with and adopt Chapter 160D of the North Carolina General Statutes.
All right, we have a motion to accept the proposed text amendments and adopt the attached ordinance. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Madam Mayor, just to say the General Assembly should stop trying to fit broad swaths of development ordinances into oddly shapen boxes, and just to continue my acknowledgement that this is their fault that we're changing a bunch of our plans for, in my opinion, little to no reason.
Yeah, I agree. Any other comments? All right, all in favor, let's see. Commissioner Boyette.
Aye.
Commissioner Deloach.
Aye.
Commissioner Joyner.
Aye.
Commissioner Lutz.
Aye.
And Commissioner Tornaski.
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. All right, item 6C is the Town of Wendell COVID policy updates. You thought you were done tonight after the budget, didn't you?
So, just going to talk through this one. It's hard to believe. A little over a year ago, about a year ago, the board adopted some interim COVID policies related to your meeting practices, as well as ratifying some staff policies proposed related to COVID pay, and leave practices consistent with some federal laws that adopted at the beginning of COVID. As I'm sure all of you are aware from communications, the state has altered their state of emergency to allow persons to meet again in venues such as this without spacing or mask considerations. CDC recommendations recommend that for vaccinated persons. It's problematic to try and determine who's vaccinated and who's not. So many establishments are returning to some form of modified seating or adjusted practice, much like we participated in tonight, allowing the public back into their spaces, often letting their local health considerations guide their decision makings in that. In the packet that I sent out, there were a few, discussions, policy directions staff is seeking. The first I'd like to start with is just talking about your board meeting. There are staff identified 4 general options of policy. The first is give staff the guidance to return to your pre-COVID meeting policy. And that's just your prior adopted organizational documents and policy that you adopted after you first assembled as a board. And that would be both the public and the board being in person to participate in a meeting. Kind of the other side of that spectrum is the interim COVID meeting policy that was adopted at the beginning of COVID, which allowed the ability to maintain both public and board able to participate in meetings virtually. The state further clarified that was acceptable and adopted language how that should happen in their view, which we've been following the past year with the 24-hour comment period after a public hearing and boards not being able to adopt until a following meeting. There's a public hybrid version that I laid out in your packet. That's return the board in person like tonight, but maintain options for virtual public participation. So it wouldn't be a virtual meeting from a state statute because you're all here and participating, but the public would have other ways to participate in the meeting beyond being here. They could provide comment in advance to the clerk. They could speak digitally, virtually in a public hearing like they did tonight. You could even still allow them to provide comment after a hearing to be responsive. The thought on this option is there's going to be a period of time where people need to reacclimate into in-person and feel comfortable from their own personal health standpoint of being in this environment. And there's a value basis that y'all need to decide as a group on, is that important to allow that or not? And then a limited virtual option would be primarily to return to the pre-meeting policies, but define specific circumstances that may necessitate a virtual and the timing of that. I wouldn't wish this on anybody, but if someone critical to the operation of the meeting tested positive to COVID, or was sick in that manner or some other manner, if the board still placed a value in them being able to participate though they could not physically be here, you could define what those situations are. And then, in that case, the public would also, in my mind, be allowed to participate in a hybrid manner as well. So with that, I kind of hand it back to the mayor and board to have a discussion in this area. I'm happy, and I'm sure Jim would as well, to answer any questions that y'all may have about how that can work or not work.
Okay. For me personally, I'm liking option 4. I definitely like the idea of making things as easy as possible for citizens to participate. And if some want to be, and I think also in addition to the health concerns that the manager mentioned, it's just habit now, and I think some ways we've gotten in habit, and there is a convenience aspect of it for the public. So I don't want to do anything to keep the public from participating. So I like the idea of number 4. As far as the board members are concerned, personally, I think we should all be here. I think that when you run for elected office, it's 2 nights a month, and we need to all be here, and where the citizens can come in and look at us and tell us what they think. And I think it's important that your presence in this room is important. That's just my personal opinion. So I think you need to be here to do the citizens' business. What does everybody else think?
I agree with you on most of those points, Mayor. I think anything that increases public engagement and allows the public to interact in more ways is a good thing. I think the call-in option has definitely been good to allow people who can't get out as easy or who are more concerned for their health to still participate. And as far as streaming the meetings on Facebook or wherever it is that we put them, I think that's, absolutely a great thing.
Yeah.
As far as board member participation, the manager will remember that I was asking for virtual participation for board members before COVID was ever even thought about. Because it's my feeling that if you can have as many board members engaged at as many meetings as is possible, then that's good, as opposed to them just being out. With that said, I do agree it's obviously better and works better, and there's a better flow when everyone's here in person. I would be in favor of either 1 or 4. I'm sorry, 2 or 4. I would be in favor of 2 or 4, and 2 with the understanding, the board understanding the importance, and not using trivial excuses to call in virtually or whatever. It would basically be like number 4, except just no written rules for the board. I feel like if we go number 4, the limited virtual option, then we're going to end up, writing some rules, and then the very first situation that comes up isn't going to fit neatly into one of those little buckets. And I think that the mayor and the board members here are responsible enough to understand what's an appropriate use of virtual attendance and what's not. So my first choice would be to stick with what we have, number 2, with an understanding of the importance of in-person board meetings. But I could also be in favor of number 4.
Yeah. I do think that, I agree with really everything that you said. I do think that we got a little casual about attendance. And so I think it's important that you be here. You can schedule around it. It's the second and fourth Monday night of the month. It has been for 100 years or however long, and we need to be here unless it needs to be the exception and not the rule to not be here. And if you have something that comes up, you can be absent. It's okay. Nobody is, things happen, so you can be absent. All right, any other comments?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I'll just say agreeing with both of you guys, and then partially for a different reason on the board members. I think most of us have used it at least once during the process. I don't think that our presence or lack of presence at that meeting would have impacted it, but I do feel like when Phil's not here, I feel like I need to be asking questions about street widths. When Joe's not here, I need to ask questions about, everyone kind of has their thing. Certainly, it's our policy to change, and I would be the first to correct that policy if it felt like it was misused in the future, and I would imagine that we could do that pretty quickly, possibly while that person's still.
I also want us to be very careful that because if we allow a virtual option for the board, that a board member who needs to be away for some reason doesn't feel like they have to call in virtually. Like, you were out, I believe, because of a death in your family, and I feel like he should have felt like he didn't have to call in, I'll be honest. So I think that we need to be aware of that and not create, I think we need to be aware of that.
I certainly appreciate that. I think that the logic for me, and I work in a place where people routinely are not at their desk at the time of the vote, and sometimes that's for convenient reasons. And I think that kind of also provides a check on that, because if you don't have a good reason, you had another option. So it's not as easy to tell people that I would have voted with you if I'd have been there, or I agree with you if I'd have been there.
That's fine too.
So I think it provides a check, and I think the biggest thing that we all agree on is that it's our decision, and it sounds as if we'd be rather quick to change it if it isn't used correctly.
Okay. We need to tighten up on it then. That's my final thing I'm gonna say for now. But I'm watching. Anybody else?
Sure, I'll chime in. I'll say,
Yeah.
I'd go with option one, just open everything back up to normal. Thanks.
Pre-COVID policy?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll agree with most of what's being said. I think for me personally, I've done a couple virtual meetings, one of which I probably would have chosen to not be available, but the virtual option was available to me, so I felt it was important that I participate.
Yeah.
I think we're all grown, and we can figure it out. But the option is, if needed, I have no problem with that. I do agree with the public comment part. We've been begging for a year plus, so any opportunity, whether it's beforehand, during, in person, 24 hours following, the more the merrier in my mind. I will say that I've had a couple conversations about the holdover to the following meeting for votes. I know for myself, it's not created any sort of hardship. I think we have a couple of examples of applicants and citizens, and just being able to have conversations and talk it out. They hear our thoughts this meeting, and then if necessary, they have a little bit of a time period to interact if needed. So it's not that we can't make a quick decision. It's that it's made sense, I think, to be able to push it out if needed.
A lot of boards don't vote that night anyhow, so I think it's demonstrated to us that there's a benefit to that window of time. So that's okay too. I agree with you.
In the spirit of being just thorough, I'll kind of throw my 2 cents in as well. I agree with Commissioner Boyett's earlier comments that I think this is a way to continue to engage public comment, whether it's an email after the meeting or whether it's someone who's not able to physically, comfort level be at a meeting. It allows them a chance to participate and communicate their concerns to us. I do like the ability of some sort of virtual option. I myself, as far as we all have families and conflicts and things that come up, and I agree. I don't, to me, if you're, if you're able to be here, I think you should be here. I think if you're not able to be here, whether it's work, whether it's family, whether it's any reason for that matter, I don't ever, and I'm the one who, when I'm out of town, I don't log in usually because I'm usually with my family, and I try to not time it out, but it somehow always seems to just somehow works like that. But so I'd encourage us all to be here in person. I think we can have better discussions and better flow of the meeting. While at the same point, if something comes up and we're not here, then I respect everybody here enough to know that if they're not here, then they're not just goofing off. They're not here for a reason, and that's fine by me too. So.
Is that everything you need?
Yep.
Can I add
Yes.
a couple thoughts?
Okay.
A year ago, we were all trying to interpret the existing law and the availability of remote options because it wasn't used very frequently until a year ago. And there is some language in the statutes that appears to allow that option. But there's a difference of opinion about it, and there's a school of thought out there that the remote option really wasn't an option at all. I've never been of that opinion. I've always thought if a board member was out and could remote in, could hear and be heard, that was an available legal process. The law that was changed last year to allow everybody. Now, I never took the position that more than one could do it at the time.
Yeah.
But the law that was passed last year allowed everybody to remote in, and that's what we did for a while. But that law applies during a declared state of emergency. So when the state of emergency is gone, that option is not available anymore. I would still be of opinion that if one of you wanted to remote in, and it wasn't a violation of board policy, that it wouldn't be a violation of state law that you could do that. But anyway, when the emergency's over, the fully remote option is over as well.
So you mean the state of emergency in the town of Wendell that was declared, or the entire state?
Either one. It just has to be within the geographic area covered by the state of emergency.
Okay.
So it could be either one.
Okay. Because ours is getting ready to go away. Okay.
So to the attorney's point, it sounds like there's some kind of side rails to allowing some flexibility. Sounds like it's a first come, worst case allowed for a virtual, if it's used. And that's the policy direction of the board, because that would be inconsistent with your prior policy after a state of emergency.
What do you mean by first come? What do you mean by that?
If only one
Only
person,
one?
in the
Is that
attorney's
what you're
opinion,
saying?
only one commissioner could be absent.
Okay, at a time.
At a time, then,
I think legally you could do two. It's when you get beyond a quorum. If you don't
have a quorum.
Physically present in person, then I think you've got it legally.
Yeah.
so quorum has to be maintained
In person.
in person.
In person. Mhm.
But you could still have that flexibility. On the public comment 24 after the public hearing, that's also tied to the state law that sunsets with the state of emergency. So the period after a public hearing would not be available in a non-state of emergency virtual opinion.
It wouldn't be required, but it could still be allowed.
If we chose to do that, we could do that. Or
Yeah.
we could have the public hearing and still vote in 2 weeks, like Commissioner Deloach said, just because it allows for some, is that correct?
Yeah, I would recommend, if we're going to do that, that we make sure that our code of ordinances, our UDO, for public hearings is consistent with the policy, so that our code and policy aren't inconsistent on that. So that would, if that was the direction that y'all wanted to extend approval processes another month to allow that time to discuss after a public hearing before a decision.
I just mean to vote. So if you held the public hearing one night, you could vote the next night, the next meeting.
Right, and that may be inconsistent in process language that's currently in our.
Okay.
So we
I don't know
would
if it
want to
is or
go
not.
back and make sure
Okay.
that our code and our temporary COVID policy that's becoming
Right.
more permanent. So if that's a direction, we can start that review and text amendment.
Yeah. Well,
uh,
anything we talk about tonight, we've got to make sure we're doing it legal. So that's the bottom line for all of it when we get done.
Right.
Mr. Manager, while you're wordsmithing, and Mr. Manager, Mr. Chairman, while you're wordsmithing, and I certainly agree with the after the meeting in the 2 weeks, I think it's been helpful in a lot of scenarios. But if you would attempt to craft it in a way that gives staff the flexibility, or the board the flexibility at staff's direction, to accelerate that process if needed. I would hate to box ourselves into not being able to do it. If everyone's in an agreement, we should be able to do it, and staff says, hey, I want you to be able to move this project, I don't want this one to wait 2 weeks, certainly make it a vote, make it a process, do whatever you like, but if you see an angle in there to do that, I think that would be a good thing to try to achieve.
Yeah, or like these 160D things we've been doing.
Exactly.
I mean, let's crank through them. So, I mean, there's no benefit in waiting for 2 weeks on that. So,
Okay. So one thing that comes to mind is, and staff talked a little bit about this in our discussions, is staff is one thing, the board is one thing, public's expectation of consistency. If a meeting changes, like if you're doing a virtual 1 week with the 24-hour after, and the next it's a regular meeting and it's not there. And that would also apply to that. If sometimes y'all apply it, but a public is expecting that they can provide that comment after, then we need to, even if we're properly noticing our meetings to specify which we're doing, it can create confusion in your public that's kind of not intended. You're trying to help facilitate their participation, and it might just aggravate by having an inconsistent process.
So I would say that 2 weeks is,
And just-
2 weeks is the rule. The 1 week, or the old way of doing it, would be the exception. And I think that it would be rather apparent and rather it would not be a confrontational matter to get it to the 1 week.
housekeeping issues.
I would offer that like a 160D example, a great direction to staff at your public hearing would be, Mr. Manager, it wouldn't cause any great heartburn if we saw that on consent next meeting. And then you don't go through the staff report on the 6 items. It's just adopted with a lot on 3.
Mr. Manager, and I don't know if there's any more 160D, but it'd be nice if we saw those on consent.
We have to have a public hearing for them though, don't we? But
Well,
you're talking about
yeah,
the
for the
approval would be
decision.
on the next consent.
For the decision, if the,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, the decision would,
Okay.
okay.
Two different things though. The 24-hour rule left the public hearing open
Yeah,
and an opportunity to submit additional comments. What I was hearing from Commissioner Deloach is it wasn't necessarily the additional time for public comments to be submitted. It was the additional time for the parties to engage.
yeah,
You don't need a 24-hour rule for that to happen.
yeah,
That can happen with just a decision to be made at the next meeting,
Yeah.
whether you keep the public hearing open or not.
yeah.
I guess, in my mind, the purpose of the 24-hour is if somebody dials in at the 11th hour and they hear what we're talking about, and they feel like they need to say something, they got 24 hours to do that. That's my only, and I don't even know how many we had.
Have we gotten anybody submit public comment in the 24 hours following a public hearing?
I don't remember, so.
one or two in the past year?
It's usually repeats of letters that they submitted in advance or comments that they provided at.
And that's consistent in what I see in other jurisdictions as well.
So-
24-hour rule, nothing.
So it was put there just in case, but,
So I have a different angle on what the 24-hour rule looks like after COVID. And I think it's the person that sits in the back of the room, that's physically here in the back of the room, that says, I don't know enough about the project to know if I need to comment, and then says, well, maybe now that I've thought about it, I do want to comment. And I see it as something that could be used in the future. I also see it as someone who feels like their point has been made 10 times over on a very animated public comment, but they want to be on the record as saying it, and that's another way for them to submit it. So back in the future, when we have packed meetings full of people, I see it as like a pressure relief valve. Yeah.
so do you see a problem leaving the public hearing open, subject to for 24 more hours? Is there because I feel like Commissioner Joyner would like us to continue that, and Commissioner Deloach as well, possibly, I think.
I don't think so, but let me think about that a little.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm fine if it's not possible. It just,
Yeah.
as we all have said, any option that allows for more comment is good.
So y'all can talk about that, and y'all can work that out. Okay. All right, so are you good now? You know everything you need to know?
Yeah.
For this
The
portion?
the only other item that we brought up from a staff perspective, since there's some form of ability for someone still to participate remotely, is if we are doing a virtual meeting and we need to notify the public of it, we need to have advance notice from the board person requesting a virtual meeting to the clerk, at least by close of business the Tuesday before the meeting. Which is before the packet goes out, so that we typically review with the mayor the agenda. It's our pre-meeting agenda review on Tuesday morning, and so preferably before that. But if we get it by the end of close of business on Tuesday, when we're putting together the packet on Wednesday, we can make sure the wording is correct in the agenda for the nature of the meeting. If it happens after that, I would need to consult with the board to modify from what we've already posted, because it would mean reposting, and depending on the nature of the items on the agenda, it can create, if we mess up somewhere, it can create legal issues that we can avoid by just having consistency.
I think a big part of the reason that some people would need to take advantage of the virtual option, they're not going to know almost a week ahead of time. I'm just being honest. So
Yeah.
I wonder if we're creating a policy and a thing that we can do that winds up us not being able to use it anyhow. You know, emergencies come up, things come up, there's delays, work things happen.
So a question that I would have for the attorney would be, and answer it at your leisure tonight or later, but if a board member in a pre-COVID world wanted to participate remotely in the manner that was deemed legal, is there a different meeting notice that the town would have to put out?
No.
All right, so that alleviates the staff concern. We're not posting it like under the state of emergency COVID meeting as a virtual meeting. It would be a normal, regular meeting.
Okay, so we're good on that. Okay?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Did you want to talk about any of the other?
Yeah, just to, I want to talk through the additional items, and then if I can just get a motion to ratify, and then I'll put out the wording to staff and the organization tomorrow on that. Nothing's changed from what's in your packet, but for the record, COVID pay was authorized in certain circumstances. It's been, I think, solely benefited to the police department for being for meeting those requirements under who was eligible for COVID pay. Given that the state of emergency is being rescinded, staff is requesting to sunset the COVID pay program effective June 10th. That's a Thursday at the end of a payroll, which means the end of the COVID pay would be, they'll see that last on their June 24th paycheck. We're the last jurisdiction still providing this at this point. This would allow it to cover all pay period times during the declared state of emergency from the point of enactment. And I would also ask that in the event that things deteriorated, which no one wants to have happen, but that I would have the authority to reinstate COVID pay as appropriate to if we're asking staff to work beyond their job descriptions in such an emergency. And you are welcome to interrupt me if y'all have differing thoughts, but otherwise I'll just work through these. Alternate work arrangements, we're still productive. The town organization's still getting a lot done, and if one or two people in a department are able to flex their schedule and work from home and still complete the work, then that's a benefit of a happy employee to the organization, as well as a benefit of a productive employee to the public. I've asked department heads to develop a schedule to ensure coverage, to ensure that no program has a lapse in being able to be provided to the public at any given time, but that if and means to be accountable for the nature and amount of work that their staff is doing in a remote environment, but that if they submitted alternate work arrangements, that would be possible. There's a degree of that that's currently allowed in our personnel policy already. Keep sick at home. I haven't asked finance for the exact sick leave totals. Anecdotally, people have not been sick. Evidently, if you stay 6 feet apart, wear a mask, and wash your hands frequently, you don't get a lot of things. And so maintaining the keep sick at home policy that's been part of the COVID, especially while COVID is still showing positive cases within our community, is still recommended at this time. Leave policies, maintain COVID leave allowances, but alter the language to reflect that it's a town benefit and not tied to the Family First Coronavirus Response Act. The last thing we want is for an employee to feel somehow obligated to come to work if they're known positive for COVID, or ill in that manner with COVID-related symptoms, because they have a lack of balance of leave, or they're trying to save leave for retirement or some other decision in that manner. If someone's out to go get tested and be quarantined, and our occupational health has recommended that, staff still recommends maintaining the flexibility in leave to allow that for the immediate future. Relaxing the COVID-19 guidance for personal travel and social community exposure, just simplifying the language from, right now it reads that if you leave the state, you have to go through certain processes to come back to work, just to known hotspots. If someone goes to do work in India right now, might be good to make sure that they quarantine a bit before they come back. And then the duration of the policy, our current policies are set to sunset June 30th, 2021. And this just would extend these policies through December 31st, 2021, unless modified or rescinded at an earlier date, which is consistent with the prior. So that it'll sunset on its own December 31st. Hopefully conditions don't necessitate us keeping it around that long. And I'd be happy to answer any questions or take a motion to ratify that policy direction.
Any questions, comments? Motion to ratify the updates to the policy?
So moved.
All right. Commissioner Boyette?
Aye.
Commissioner Deloach?
Aye.
Commissioner Joyner?
Aye.
Commissioner Lutz?
Aye.
And Commissioner Tornaski?
Aye.
All right. Item 7, is other business. 7A, update on board committees by town board members. The only one is me tonight. This past week, I virtually attended Campo. We held 3 public hearings. We had lots of updates at this meeting about the things that we work on that we just typically, plans that we work on in Campo. So there was a lot of, I kind of call them housekeeping issues, but it was things that we just do all the time. So we had 3. The first one was fiscal year 2022 and 2023, enhanced mobility of seniors and individuals with disabilities. Program project selection. We held a public hearing for the fiscal 2022 recommended Wake Transit Work Plan and a public hearing for the locally preferred alternative for Wake Bus Rapid Transit in the Southern Corridor. And we will vote on all of those at our meeting in June because they were virtual to allow for additional public comment, much like we've been doing in here. We approved the Triangle Region ITS Strategic Development Plan. We approved the fiscal year 2021 fourth quarter Wake Transit Work Plan amendment requests, and we approved the 2020 Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan performance measurement targets. We received information on the Complete 540 project, just an update on that. We received information on the 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan. We received information on the Mobility Coordination Committee update and other just regular staff, typical monthly staff reports that we hear every time. And we'll be meeting again in June. All right. That's the last one. So let's go into our commissioners' comments. Commissioner Joyner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, just one, it was great to see people here tonight. Happy to have public comment back in the room. I will skip over my next point until that next meeting. Again, just wanted to thank staff and everyone for the past year. You guys have come up with new processes, new things, new. I lost count of the number of crises we've had in the past year that we need to fundamentally change everything for. And in the middle of that, you provided a budget that is consistent with providing, in my opinion, a lot of things to a lot of people in an equitable way. So just no other comment tonight other than to say I appreciate staff and I appreciate the hard work that went into the budget. And I think for the record, it's got to be the shortest budget. I mean, if I would have shut up, it would have been a lot shorter, but beyond that. And then I would be absolutely remiss. I learned earlier that apparently it was Bob Dylan's birthday, but it is our very own Mayor Pro Tem, John Boyette's birthday. Some of you know him as Captain Boyette, some of them know him as Commissioner Boyette. He's glad he's back in the room, even if we have to, the first thing we discuss is how he might not be in the room in the future. But happy birthday, we certainly appreciate you and glad to see a lot of these things that we were talking about years ago are coming to fruition.
All right, Commissioner Boyette.
Thank you for that. First, let's start with Go Hurricanes. I've appreciated watching the first roughly 5.5 games that they've played in this series, them splitting it 2-2. I would also like to say happy birthday to a few people. John C. Riley, Heavy D, G-Eazy, Bartolo Colon, Will Sasso, Bob Dylan, Queen Victoria, Joey Logano, and Tommy Chong.
And a very special birthday, happy birthday to Simon David Merriweather. My newest nephew was born this morning, and his proud parents, Courtney and Jack Merriweather, I know are very happy that he's here and healthy, and a very happy older brother, Bennett, is happy to see him here too. So those are my comments.
Commissioner Lutz,
I have no comments tonight, Mayor.
Commissioner Tornaski,
Good evening, Mayor. Yes, I have one comment. I'm very happy to see my water bill go down this month, and also all my neighbors that came and talked to me. So, thank you very much.
me as well. Commissioner Deloach,
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple quick things. A little shout out to the Rotary Club of Wendell. We've done a handful of book donations recently in our schools. I personally had a privilege of being a part of a couple of those. We did a nice little read-along, which was fun, kids and staff. We've been able to go into a couple of schools, so that's been great, and I think we have a handful of Rotarians here tonight that can vouch for the fact that it's a very rewarding thing that we do in our community and in our schools. So that's been fun. We got a couple more to go. Actually dropping some off at East Wake High School tomorrow. Finally, I want to thank our planning director, Nikki Jones, for his service to our town. He actually lived here long before he worked here, and I always appreciated that about him. So he is a fellow pirate, as we know. I take that very seriously, and I appreciate everything that he's done for us, and I wish he and his family the best. That being said, Brian Coates, congratulations to you, sir, stepping into that position. Also a Wendell resident and have been for quite some time. So thanks for all you guys have done and continue to do. That's it.
okay. Real quickly, it's funny to me, our town manager and finance director and department have turned me into a budget and numbers nerd, which I never thought I would ever be. But I get really excited about the budget now, and I have been a couple of years now. I'm really proud of it, particularly this year. I say that every year. All the things that we're accomplishing, all the things that are taking place on behalf of the citizens, and you can't go through town without seeing things happening, roads and just improvements taking place, and those are all from that effort. It's exciting to me to see the things that we've worked very hard on and the plans that this board has adopted coming into fruition. That's very exciting to me because I don't feel like we're wasting our time and we're just coming up with ideas and we ought to try this, we ought to try that. I like having very strategic plans in place and going through them and checking them off one by one. I really, I like that process, and that's the process that we have now, and that is why the budget was a simple thing this year. I'm gonna say it was simple. Maybe it wasn't, but it was simple for us and for our effort. That we are working on our parks, our streets, our staff, equipment of all kinds, facilities, programming, the downtown, the neighborhood improvement project. I mean, I was sitting here trying to think of all the things. There's a million more, you know, and every single thing is getting touched. Every single thing gets touched every year. Effort and dollars are put into every one of those things this year, and we're doing that all without raising your ad valorem taxes. So I'm very proud of that. And well done to the manager, Butch, the finance department. I'm so pleased. I just can't tell you. It's very exciting. It's an exciting time in Wendell, and I feel fortunate to be the mayor during such a fine time. All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, we're adjourned.